Asian stock markets rebounded on Tuesday after Donald Trump delayed imposing tariffs on Mexico and Canada. Japan's Nikkei index was up around 1.5% by lunchtime. Exporters led the recovery, having taken the brunt of losses a day before on fears of a global trade war. Auto giant Toyota gained close to 3%. There was a similar move in South Korea, where Samsung was among the risers. And in Hong Kong, the Hang Seng index jumped around 2.5% in morning trade. Markets in mainland China remained shut for the Lunar New Year holidays, meaning they've sat out days of turmoil. Now Trump has not delayed plans to impose across-the-board 10% tariffs on Chinese exports, and he's warned the levies could be raised even more if the country doesn't take action to stop what he says is the flow of fentanyl into the US.
We don't want fentanyl coming into our country. Now, we had another big thing, speaking of China. China's involved with the Panama Canal. They won't be for long, and that's the way it has to be.
Beijing says the drug is America's problem and has vowed to challenge the tariffs at the World Trade Organization. Besides fears of a trade war, investors also worry that tariffs will drive inflation and maybe put US rate cuts into reverse. Globalt Investments partner Keith Buchanan says the Federal Reserve now has a headache.
So they're in a really tough situation of understanding just how quickly developing this trade conflict is, and also having to set policy that really can be nimble enough to move around any changes in trade policy, and also as well as other dynamics of inflation and employment as their dual mandate dictates that they have to. So it really complicates things. In a time where it seemed like we were looking at the end zone as far as being able to declare victory on inflation moving very close to that 2% target.
All that leaves global markets on edge, driving money into perceived safe havens. Gold jumped to record highs on Monday amid the trade war fears and was holding near those levels a day later. On currency markets, the Canadian dollar and Mexican peso held steady Tuesday after soaring higher following news of the tariff delays.
Police were investigating the motive for a mass shooting at an adult education center in central Sweden on Tuesday, the country's deadliest attack ever. The local police chief said that, quote, 10 or so people were killed in the shooting, telling a news conference that he couldn't be more exact about the death toll at that time because, quote, the extent of the incident is so large. He also said the gunman is believed to be among those killed.
He is not known to the police from before and has no gang affiliations. What we believe is that it was a lone perpetrator. I want to emphasize that the situation could change, and this is the information we have at the moment.
A student at the school for adults told local TV news that she and her friend tried to stem the bleeding of one of the victims.
A guy next to me was shot in the shoulder. He was bleeding a lot. When I looked behind me, I saw 3 people on the floor bleeding. Everyone was shocked. They said, "Get out, get out." I and my friend tried to save the life of this person.
The search for victims went into the evening as Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson spoke to reporters.
It is difficult to take in the magnitude of what has happened today. The darkness that is now falling over Sweden tonight. Today, we have seen a brutal, deadly violence against completely innocent people. This is the worst mass shooting in Swedish history.
Police said they had opened an investigation into murder, arson, and an aggravated weapons offense. The school in Örebro, Sweden, where the shooting took place, is for adults who did not complete their formal education or failed to get the grades to continue to higher education.
Mexican soldiers were mobilized to the US border on Tuesday to crack down on fentanyl trafficking. It's part of a deal between US President Donald Trump and Mexico's leader Claudia Sheinbaum to pause his threat of tariffs for a month. National Guard Coordinator Jose Luis Santos Isa spoke to the media.
The personnel that have just arrived belong to the National Guard. They arrived because of the recent agreements between President Claudia Sheinbaum and President Donald Trump, which consist of reinforcing the northern border of our country with people of the National Guard to avoid drug trafficking from Mexico to the United States, especially of fentanyl.
The plan to eventually deploy 10,000 Mexican soldiers is an initial concession that was announced on Monday. Sheinbaum said Washington also made promises to try and stop the flow of high-powered weapons from the United States over the border into Mexico. Mexico argues that more than 500,000 guns are trafficked annually into the country from the U.S. Analysts Reuters spoke to say the hefty concentration of Mexican troops at the border could leave other areas of the country vulnerable. Sheinbaum has threatened retaliatory tariffs if Trump makes good on his threat of 25% duties on Mexican imports. A trade war between Mexico and the U.S. would likely throw Mexico into a recession, while U.S. consumers would have been hit with higher prices on Mexican imports, including cars and trucks. Mexico's economy minister, Marcelo Ebrard, told reporters on Tuesday that they believed a month was, quote, more than enough to strike a deal to head off Trump's threats.
Shares of PepsiCo fell 4% Tuesday morning after it forecast annual profit below expectations and missed quarterly revenue estimates. The Doritos maker is battling weakening demand for its sodas and snacks, such as Lay's potato chips in the United States, its largest market. Americans are still paring back spending on soft drinks and salty treats to save their dollars for essential purchases, forcing PepsiCo to tap promotions for volume growth, after price hikes led to a slowdown for several quarters. The company plans to offer multi-packs and mini canisters to bring back consumers leaning towards smaller pack sizes or cheaper alternatives from retail aisles. PepsiCo also promised it would spend heavily to overhaul existing products and introduce new items, such as ethnic-inspired chip flavors, to spur demand. One analyst told Reuters the Frito-Lay business is still finding its footing as elevated prices weigh on snacking trends, and the beverage business also continues to lose share.